to go vertically into the integration.
Jim?
I'd like to disagree with that statement a little bit. There are a number of airlines that are very aggressive of looking at new fuel, and they made very public statements. British Airways, for example, KLM, Qantas. I mean, they're looking at back integrating, looking at having partners with fuel providers, with fuel producers. This is the State Aviation Fuels User Group, which control 25% of world jet fuel. All have programs that are committed to not only looking for sources of fuel, but also examining other production routes too around the world.
Great. Since Jim and you and Guilherme, since the airlines don't want to invest in the fuels, and according to Vinod Khosla, the oil companies are too shy to invest on fuels, are the aircraft manufacturers willing to invest in it?
You know, for Boeing, we put a significant amount of investment getting through the approval process of these bio-oils already. That was self-funded within Boeing. And Boeing's an aircraft manufacturer. We're not a fuel production company or a feedstock production company. But we felt that's very important for the industry. We want to keep selling airplanes. And as fuel gets harder to get, more expensive, and people fly less. So we thought that's something very important to do for the industry to accelerate biofuel production and approval.
O que eu falaria sobre, eu acho que antes até as palavras do Charles quando o Jim foram antagônicas no sentido de que eu vou tentar até colocar um ponto aí dentro do que o Jim falou agora. Eu acho que o Joel perguntou, as linhas aéreas como 40% dos seus custos são, quer dizer, por que as linhas aéreas não verticalizam isso, né? Eu acho que é muito complicado essa questão da integração vertical de um processo, ainda que 40% do custo tem a ver, mas a gente entende que é muito difícil para nós, enquanto empresas aéreas, porque nosso custo de investimentos na tecnologia do avião como um todo é muito grande. E a gente tem justamente esse objetivo, que é suportar este desenvolvimento, seja de uma AMYRIS, seja de uma Solozymes, seja de outras empresas que estão nesse processo, dentro da sua cadeia de valor, né? Então, eu acho que não é que a gente não apoia, a gente apoia dentro do que a gente pode dentro da nossa cadeia de valor.
So, Fernando, let me go to you now, and I'll do it in English. So, if we look from this scenario of trying, and think of yourself as just one of the many folks who are trying to develop renewable jet fuel. You've got the airlines who are willing to do some work. You've got the aircraft manufacturers who are doing some work. New companies like AMYRIS, as well as others who are in the space. What is the ultimate, the toughest barrier? Is it the certification process? Is it the actual just technology? Is it just market acceptance? Where do you see the biggest challenge?
I would say
and in full disclosure, since we're in the same company, we did not test each other. I don't know what we haven't quizzed each other on this, so I have no clue what he's going to say. Yeah.
What I would say
I hope it's nothing really sensitive.
No, I would say that I would describe the challenge near term and longer term. Near term is for an emerging company like ours, like most biofuels, the industry support to validate the fuel. As you have seen in the presentation, we did get early participation from GE, which we're indebted to, early participation from EMBRAER, early participation from the U.S. Air Force, NASA, and others. The cost of validating a fuel, because it requires an assortment of equipment, airframes, fuel components, nozzles, you know your aircraft very well, highly expensive. We can produce the fuel, but to pay for the actual cost of testing is cost prohibitive for a company like ours. So it does need support both by industry, all stakeholders, and by government to provide the infrastructure and the support for validating the fuel. Long term, I think the industry, particularly the airframers and the engine manufacturers, need to have an open mind. I think I showed you properties that a sugarcane-derived fuel can exceed performance of petroleum. Distillation curve, for example, we're subject to fit the distillation curve of petroleum, but that doesn't mean that's the best fuel. Truth of the matter is I believe science will show that distillation, because we can adjust the distillation, we can tune the distillation by not only chemical process, but by the yeast design. By engineering the yeast, we can change the distillation and perhaps provide a distillation curve that is superior, that would allow for more efficient engine operation, perhaps higher flights, so forth and so on. So long term, I think it is a matter of industry opening their eyes, opening their minds to greater potential, beyond petroleum, and look at future standards that are subject to the best possible fuel and not only petroleum specifications.
Thank you.
Did I surprise you?
No? You're the regulatory guy, right? You're not supposed to surprise us. Any questions from the audience that anybody's had that wants to do it out loud? I've got a few more here, but do we have mics? Or I know I've got one here. So. Well, the interpreters won't hear you.
Thank you. So for 2012, all the airlines flying to Europe will have a cap on their emissions, and we have to comply with, with the cap and trade, the European cap and trade system. How much of incentive do you think that is for the airlines to invest in biofuels? Is it a significant, or you don't think it would have a significant impact on their transition to use of biofuels?
You guys hear?
I don't hear, sorry.
I hear that.
Better now? Yeah? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah?
now I do.
Okay. So from 2012, I was saying that the airlines flying to Europe will have to comply with a certain cap of their emissions, and we have to comply with the European cap and trade system. How much of incentive do you think this cap on emission represents for the airlines to use biofuels and to use more sustainable fuels? Is it a significant one, or is it not going to have a significant impact?
Go ahead, Charles.
First, nothing will happen much because the initial level of carbon emission that an airline is allowed is based on a year that actually was higher. But very soon, airlines will have to cap emissions or buy rights from other airlines or from the industry. And that is the big question, where do we get it from? If you remember the graph that I showed, there are several things you can do. You fly more fuel-efficient aircraft, CO2 goes down. You use biofuels, CO2 goes down. So the answer to your question is that over the coming years, that system will incentivize airlines to take several measures to reduce fuel consumption and reduce CO2, of which one is biofuel. But it's not something that in 2012 will have an effect already.
Eu
Guilherme?
queria só complementar com uma questão. Ainda que em 2012 haverá o início de um processo de cobrança de taxação de carbono na Europa, eu acho que tem dois pontos importantes dizer. A indústria da aviação tem um tracking muito forte de eficiência. Então, muitas vezes a gente preferiria que esse recurso que está saindo da indústria, está saindo do passageiro, está saindo da companhia aérea, né? Até uma dúvida de onde vai ser esse dinheiro, na verdade. Para a Europa, para um sistema europeu, poderia retornar até em pesquisa e desenvolvimento da própria indústria, em desenvolvimento de tecnologias ou até mesmo o desenvolvimento de novos combustíveis. O segundo ponto importante a se dizer é que, infelizmente ou felizmente, quer dizer, primeiramente vai ser a Europa, mas a gente sabe que em outras regiões do mundo acontecerão isso nos próximos anos, ou até mesmo como eu comentei que a partir de 2020, a própria indústria globalmente deseja pagar isso de uma forma equilibrada e global, sem distorções de mercado, né, com level playing field. Então, a gente entende que essa diferença, esse delta aí, que é muito difícil hoje você calcular, porque não está ainda binder, não está ainda definido certamente quanto que vai ser, vai gerar em termos de custo adicional. Mas, com certeza, poderá ser um incentivo a mais para a questão aí do equilíbrio do preço do biocombustível para nós aí, que a gente sabe que no começo vai ser bem complexo.
Any more questions from the audience? Anyone? So I'll use that. Go ahead, Charles.
I would like to make one important statement about the aviation sector. It's only 6% of the barrel. And yes, it's very important aviation for us all, but there are still a lot of people that don't travel. But I think aviation is probably the greatest opportunity for biofuels. Why? It's one global industry with one standard, one certification, ASTM and UK defense standard. There are very few engine manufacturers. There are actually very few airplane types. If you certify different sources, biomass, biofuels, different sources for biofuel for the aviation industry, you have a global market immediately, overnight. You can go to whatever country and say, what do you grow? Sugarcane? You use this. What do you do? Bio-waste, London, you mentioned British Airways. Oh, I take landfill credits. I don't know any other industry, not shipping, nor cars or public transport, where you have a global industry, a global organization, several global organizations, ICAO, IATA, who are committed. And so few hurdles, a certification, and a few engines and a few airplane manufacturers, and everybody interested in it. But also an industry who needs a solution to get rid of the volatility of the oil price. So I think we should see the opportunity for biofuel in aviation, because that's the one that goes global the fastest.
Thank you. Guilherme, this question to you, but then if the others can comment on it. You mentioned Abraba, which I would say I think is really your baby. You helped bring it about, I think. At least that's the way I understand it. And there was a question about, the role of Abraba here in terms of looking at the different options and comparing biokerosene and the chamomile, biokerosene made from cane and from chamomile and the other feedstocks. Can you describe a little bit of, what you guys are going to do in these different places, or are you just going to you're going to be, let's call it technology neutral, and then if the others can comment the role of collaboration of different industry players in the development of new fuels?
A Abraba é uma entidade que foi criada para incentivar todo e qualquer tipo de combustível sustentável para a aviação, né? A gente entende que a certificação do HRJ, que é um combustível que vai ser produzido a partir de oligenosos, está acontecendo nesse momento, e tem muita gente que está já trabalhando no Brasil para produzir isso através de outras biomassas. Biomassas essas que precisam de grande maturidade, processo pela qual a cana passou nos últimos 20, 30 anos. Nos Estados Unidos tem a camelina, em outras regiões do mundo pode ser palma, entre outras. A gente sabe que nos próximos anos vão surgir novas oportunidades tecnológicas e cada vez mais essa rota, as novas tecnologias vão ser maturadas num time frame mais curto. Quer dizer, se o HRJ a gente demorou 3 anos para certificar, ou 4 anos para certificar, a gente espera que os próximos processos da STM que sejam certificados sejam em 3 anos, em 2 anos. Quer dizer que você consiga ter ganho de processos aí, para que o próprio capitalismo se sinta mais à vontade para investir e o investidor aí comece a atuar em toda a cadeia de valor. E em termos de Abraba, a gente está apoiando o mercado, né, no livre mercado, e esperando que o governo, assim que possível, possa apoiar nossas iniciativas. Eu acho que até um sinal recentemente do governo brasileiro foi a assinatura do acordo bilateral Brasil-Estados Unidos, que outras pessoas aqui, cuja qual está ali também, e outras pessoas sentadas aqui, são os pais desse acordo aí Brasil-Estados Unidos. E a gente,
tem uma mãezinha dele ali.
Tem uma mãezinha, tem um pai ali, eu sou o tio. A gente trabalha para isso. Na semana, há 10 dias atrás, eu estava também lá na Holanda, representando a EMBRAER,